First, I would like to thank the organizing committee, Dr. Umesh Khanna, sir, and the chairman of this special session, Dr. Arvind Kachi, Dr. Sundar, and Dr. Ritu. And a special thank to Dr. Arvind for this special introduction. Thank you very much. So today's topic is patient with a kidney and liver disease. And, this is a nutrition in a special situation kind of topics. So one of the nephrologists is going to talk about nutrition problem with liver disease. If the patient simultaneously might have the chronic kidney disease or any kidney disease. So I'm starting this with the two photographs. The one of the patient with a chronic liver disease. Here we can see the protruded abdomen with lot of ascites, prominent veins. So it itself is speaking that patient is probably suffering from chronic liver disease. Here is another patient who is on dialysis. Here you can see the patient has ascites. Both are looking malnourished. There is no confusion. By look, you can say both patients are malnourished. And this kind of the physical examination with the protruded umbilicus here we can see is known for 300, known since 300 to 900 C without one of the photographs here in Mayan usual sites on the island of Java. So this is a well-known condition. So what are the similarity in both the condition in CKD and CLD? That we need to understand. Similarity between the two conditions are both are end-stage organ damage. Malnutrition is very common in both. Sarcopenia is very common in both, liver more than the kidney. Carbohydrate and fat calorie requirement is there in both categories. Protein requirement is approximately the same in the both, except when the patient has hepatic encephalopathy. Sodium intake requirement in the both conditions looking like they should be on the lower sodium diet. Micronutrient requirements are also seen. So both conditions sometimes have a similar kind of situation, and then you have to adjust the diet. Looking at the prevalence of malnutrition, particularly protein energy malnutrition in CKD patient, you all understand 60% patient had mild to moderate malnutrition and 10% had severe malnutrition. And the similar percentage of the patient in the chronic liver disease also. Approximately 65 to 90% of the patient with the advanced chronic liver disease has malnutrition. This is our own study, which we have published a few years before, one in 2008, another in 2016, where we have seen that mild to moderate malnutrition based on the subjective global assessment is 68%, and 7% patient can have the severe malnutrition when the patient are going for dialysis. So coming to the situation where in the liver disease, liver we all understand is a larger organ than this kidney, but God has given us the two kidneys, but one liver. Probably kidney looking like more important. But when you have the both liver and kidney affected, you can think of the condition of a patient. Liver, this is a storage for the glycogen, a source of the energy. Fat in form of the lipoprotein and triglyceride. They synthesize albumin, one of the very important nutritional components. They detoxify, they produce biles, but the patient with a liver disease are very much malnourished because of the multiple problems, because of the loss of appetite and inadequate intake, impaired digestion, impaired absorption, and altered metabolism, as well as the liver is the site of metabolism of most of the nutrients. So cirrhosis represents an accelerated state of the starvation that is called hypermetabolism. There is loss of protein, decreased synthesis of the urea and hepatic proteins, decreased intestinal protein absorption, but at the same time there is increase in urinary nitrogenous excretion. So you can think of when your kidney is also went off, this will go on accumulating. and there is a lower ratio of branched chain amino acid as compared to aromatic amino acids. Abnormal carbohydrate metabolisms, insulin resistance, impaired gluconeogenesis, reduced glycogen storage, and the lipids are preferably oxidized here in this condition for the energy. So amino acids which are altered in liver disease, here we can see there are few amino acids like the aromatic amino acids are increased, tyrosine phenylalanine tryptophan. Most important, this is one of the protein which is in real sense promoted for the increased use day-to-day practice is the branched chain amino acid that contain leucine, isoleucine, and valine. Their levels are actually decreased, and this amino acid component is very important for muscle building. And if there is a deficit, there is high chance of the patient would be sarcopenia. Other amino acids levels are also increased. So we have to focus on the branched chain amino acid. The levels are very much decreased, and that is associated with the very much malnutrition and sarcopenia. So how to link this muscle, chronic liver disease, and CKD metabolisms? Decreased level of the hepatic and muscle glycogen storage are very common in liver disease that lead to reduced availability of glucose as the energy substrate, which results in increased consumption of the fat and protein. So gradually, if you have less storage of the glycogen, your fat and proteins consumption go up, and you would be deficit in fat and proteins also. Muscle is a major metabolic organ and has an essential role in amino acid metabolism and production of nitric acid. Kidney plays a role in elimination of the nitrogenous product that we all understand in the form of urea and creatinine. But it is a site of the gluconeogenesis also, particularly when you have less glycogen stored. This gluconeogenesis from the kidney component go up. But when the kidney is also failed, then you can think of gluconeogenesis will go down. And the process of gluconeogenesis leads to muscle destruction as a source of protein substrate, and protein synthesis decrease. So this process of gluconeogenesis, actually, ultimately they use protein substrate when there is only the liver failure. And protein as a substrate for the gluconeogenesis, and ultimately leads to protein deficit state. Hepatic encephalopathy is more frequent in malnourished individual, and the cirrhotic patient with sarcopenia have increased risk of hepatic encephalopathy. About 34% of the patient have a rest energy expenditure, REE, of 120% above the expected value. So resting energy expenditure is very high. Up to 70% of the cirrhotic patient, glucose intolerance or insulin resistance, and between 10 and 40% have type 2 diabetes mellitus also. So type 2 diabetes incidence is also very high. Decreased level of the hepatic and muscle glycogen are also common, leading to reduced availability of glucose as energy substrate, which results in increased consumption of the fat and protein, as I have already explained. So sarcopenia and cirrhosis, there are multiple reasons. It is very common condition associated with chronic liver disease. Inadequate dietary intake, which you can see a lot of problems associated with this decreased dietary intake. Metabolic disturbances and malabsorption, that is very common features we all understand associated with chronic liver disease. Respiratory quotient, reduction in respiratory quotient is very much common in the cirrhotic patient as compared to control, here we can see. And resting energy expenditure is very high with the cirrhotics as compared to control. This is well established condition in chronic liver disease. So nutritional supplement in sarcopenia. Suppose the patient is sarcopenia, patient has chronic liver disease. Nutritional counseling and multidisciplinary approach is very much required. Energy intake here, 35 kilocalorie per kilogram per year. Protein intake is 1.2 to 1.5 gram per day. We'll discuss this part later on in accordance with the other condition also. Decompensated cirrhosis, poor protein intake, particularly branched chain amino acid supplements and leucine-rich oral supplements are usually required, particularly to support this sarcopenia. role of branch chain amino acids, plasma level of this branch chain amino acid correlate in the serum albumin and increase in cirrhosis. Promotes protein synthesis in muscles. In the liver, stimulates secretion of hepatocyte growth factor by hepatic stellate cells. Coming to our kidney part, here we can see we are all aware, we might have discussed several times, there are 5 stages of the chronic kidney disease. Early chronic kidney disease, stage 1 to 4, stage 5 to the patient who required hemodialysis, stage 5 peritoneal dialysis patient. Here we can see calorie requirement, almost 30 to 35 kilocalorie per kilogram body weight up to stage 4. You have to be on the higher side, more than 30, 35 kilocalorie per kilogram on patient on dialysis or peritoneal dialysis. Protein intake requirement in patients on hemodialysis go up. That we all understand. I'm not going to spend too much of the time here. Here, what we can see here about the requirement of the sodium, that should not go more than 2 grams at any stage, whether this is the early stages of the CKD, hemodialysis or peritoneal dialysis. Potassium intake should not go more than 2 to 3 grams. If the patient on peritoneal dialysis, they have a little bit more liberty to take up potassium containing food, like 3 to 4 grams as compared to 2 to 3 grams patient on hemodialysis. Phosphorus, that is one of the important components always in practice of nephrologists. Here we can see stage 5, 800 to 1 gram. Again, in peritoneal dialysis, 800 to 1 gram is charged. And how we will take care of this phosphorus, things we will discuss later on. So in terms of the calorie intake, what we understand that the calorie intake should be sufficient in any patients on the dialysis, whether this patient is on dialysis or off dialysis. What we can see, our own study has shown that was a very alarming thing which we have studied about in 2008 about more than 200 patients. Calorie intake in the patients with this here we can see severe malnourished patient has only 13 kilocalorie per kilogram body weight, and mild to moderate malnutrition has 17.8 kilocalorie per kilogram body weight. So calorie intake is very challenging, and that also remains because of the loss of appetite. The reason might be anything, inadequate dialysis or anything else, but calorie intake in our group of the patients was very low. So that we must ensure as a dietitian or as in our practice. Inadequate energy intake is essential to optimize nutritional status. Calculated based on your current weight, current loss goals, age and gender, physical activity. So calorie we have already talked about. 65 to 70% of the total calories should be with, particularly the carbohydrates should be 70% complex sugar and 30% should be simple sugar. But always keep in mind whether you are giving these prescriptions to diabetics and whether your target you are able to achieve the glycosylated hemoglobin of less than 7%. Protein intake, we all understand, we have talked about the early stages up to this 0.6 to 0.7 gram per kilogram body weight. Stage 5, you have to increase 1.2 to 1.3 gram per kilogram body weight. All stages, if patients are malnourished, where we have to focus, where is the responsibility of this dietitians or nephrologists? Many of the patients are in malnourished state at the early stages of the chronic kidney disease, and restriction of this protein might be problematic for the patient. So at all stages, if malnourished, give them the additional protein, at least to combat this protein malnutrition. So protein should not be restricted in patients with the liver disease unless they become protein intolerant due to hepatic encephalopathy. We all understand giving too much of the protein, increased formation of the ammonia, and encephalopathy may worsen. But with the fully compensated chronic liver disease, there is no restriction of the protein. And until unless the patient is in hepatic encephalopathy, and protein intake recommended is somewhat similar to the chronic kidney disease patients on dialysis, 1 to 1.5 gram per kilogram body weight. Several studies have shown that daily protein supply of 1 to 1.2 gram per kilogram per day may be sufficient to prevent negative nitrogen balance in cirrhosis. With mild stress, you have to increase a little bit towards the higher side of 1.5 gram per kilogram per day, and with acute exacerbation of hepatitis and decompensation, sometimes you might require to little bit increase depending upon the status of hepatic encephalopathy. One thing is very much common that it is thought that majority of the patient on the cirrhosis, as a nephrologist, we should be aware that they are on the propranolol or other beta blockers, and beta blockers increase protein oxidation. An alternative method of the protein metabolism without energy production and may increase protein requirement. And patient on propranolol should be placed on the higher end of the protein intake. That is one practicing point. Lipids in the diet, again, where you can see when you are not able to give too much of the protein in the diet, you have to meet the calorie requirement. So calorie requirement can be met with increase in the diet by the fat. 30% of the total calories should be given through this fat. Minimize, there is increase in triglyceride and cholesterol. Less than 10% of the calorie, saturated fatty acids should be there. Otherwise, unsaturated fatty acids are before over this saturated fatty acid in total calorie calculations. Sodium and fluids are another important point that we have already understood. One of the important points for the nephrologist and those dietitians who are dealing with the patients on the dialysis, interdialytic weight gain. General recommendation is there that between the two dialysis should not be more than 2 kg of the weight gain. More than 5% of the fluid gains, we must think whether your patient is taking excessive fluid or weight gain is too much, then, or whether your patient is taking too much of the salt. Salt is more important than your fluid intake. If your patient is taking too much of the salt, they are retaining more fluid. They would be more thirsty. So whether you have to ensure that the patient's salt intake is high. Less than 2% fluid, then inadequate fluid or food intake. Whether even if your fluid gain is not much, but patient is malnourished, whether your patient is taking well on. So at all point of the time, we can see your sodium intake should not be more than 2 to 3 grams. If the anuric patient, only 2 grams will be suffice. Phosphorus balance is again another important factors. Diet plus binders plus adequate dialysis. There are 3 important things. So dietary restrictions, but if you meet the demand of the protein in patients on the dialysis, you have to give the protein diet. But that needs to be controlled. That should be within the limit. So absorption approximately plus 600 milligram per day, binding by 50% and dialysis removal by 50%. So 50% can be removed with this binder and 50% can be dialysis can remove, and accordingly you have to balance the weekly phosphorus intake. So we have to understand that how much dialysis, whether the patient is getting adequate dialysis or not, whether the phosphorus balance is there, because these are few things which are directly associated with the cardiovascular mortality patients on chronic kidney disease, patient of chronic kidney disease. Vitamins and macronutrients, B complex, vitamin B1, B6, B9, and B12 deficiency are common. Trace elements, I would like to little bit emphasize the zinc level are reduced and play a role in the pathogenesis of hepatic encephalopathy particularly. Selenium deficiency, severity of the hepatic fibrosis in hepatitis C and contributing to insulin resistance. Magnesium level, magnesium is one thing which is very important for us, but we should also understand about the magnesium levels. Magnesium hypermagnesemia is very common in patients on dialysis, and sometimes hypomagnesemia also associated. But magnesium level increases get accumulated in the basal ganglia and plays a role in the pathogenesis of hepatic encephalopathy. So magnesium intake should be always towards the lower side. That we should always understand if the patient has coexisting CLD. So nutrition in hepatic encephalopathy, EASL recommendation for the calorie intake we can see here, 35 kilocalorie, avoid protein restrictions, branch chain amino acid supplementation should be considered, oral, to improve the neuropsychiatric performance and to reach the recommended nitrogen intake. Oral dietary intake is preferred. Grade 3 and 4 encephalopathy, they can be given feed with the nasogastric tubes. Drug nutrient interaction is another important aspect for the nephrologist who practice on such patients with the chronic liver disease.
तो थोड़ा
and
पीछे
chronic
करवाओ,
kidney disease.
ये ना इस पिलर के इधर करवाइए पीछे.
Most diuretics leads to loss of the potassium, magnesium, and zinc. That we should understand when the patient is on diuretics. Spironolactone retains potassium. That we all understand. So when there is habit of writing this diuretics plus spironolactone by gastromedicine colleague, but we should think of whether your patient's potassium balance in patient with a renal failure is adequate or not. Cholestyramine results in the loss of the vitamin A, D, E, and K by binding salts. Prolonged neomycin use can cause villus atrophy, leading to loss of the zinc and increased incidence of diarrhea. Aminoglycosides results in increased loss of the potassium, magnesium, and calcium due to altered excretion. Beta blockers increases the protein oxidation and increase the dietary protein requirements. So recommendation for the macronutrient deficiency in cirrhosis, administer macronutrients or vitamins in clinically suspected and confirmed deficiency. Vitamin D levels is another important thing. Hepatic osteodystrophy, particularly osteoporosis, is very common in patients with a chronic liver disease, and renal osteodystrophy is also very common in patients with a chronic kidney disease. And vitamin D deficiency is very common even in the general population, in a special population like the patients of chronic kidney disease. So we should always assess whether your vitamin D level of your patients are good or not. If they are not in adequate amount, we should try to supplement it. So macronutrient in critically ill cirrhotic patients, calorie requirement we have already spoken. If they are very critically sick cirrhotic patient, may require higher, more than 35 to 40 kilocalorie per kilogram, or 1.3 times measured resting energy expenditure. Total protein intake should be 1.2 to 1.3 gram per kilogram. Branch chain amino acid enriched immune enhancing diet should be there. And one thing in the last, but not the least, we should understand there are several recommendations comes about giving the testosterone if the patient is sarcopenic, they are too weak. Give them growth hormones. Other myostatin antagonist. So, but roles are limited and they are shown to be associated with the enhanced incidence of hepatocellular carcinoma. Should always be aware that this is not always a helpful therapy. So take home message, individualization of the calorie, protein, fat, and salt intake is important in clinical practice. One size does not fit in all. So it is very much important to individualize your prescription of the calorie, protein, fat, and salt intake for each patient. CLD and CKD, and sometimes hepatorenal syndrome and AKI coexist and make it further complex. Help of the trained dietitians may be helpful to optimize the nutritional intervention in such cases. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for your kind attention and for this opportunity.